In just a few hours, President-elect Joe Biden will be sworn in as the nation's 46th president, and he's set to deliver an inaugural address that promises to try to unite a fractured country.
Yeah, we're joined this morning by Stephen Caliendo, a professor of political science at North Central College. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning to both of you.
So to Roseanne's point, that is a tall order, unifying a nation, not this divided, some would argue, since before the Civil War. Can he do it with words alone in your mind?
Words are important. Probably can't do it with words alone, but I think part of what he will want to do is set a tone. He showed a little bit of that yesterday afternoon with the memorial ceremony. A quietness, a stillness. Some of that is, of course, about a pandemic where you can't gather large crowds. But I think there's a moment when in the midst of a pandemic, for sure, and economic uncertainty, for there to be some seriousness, some calm. Everything doesn't have to be a rally and a raucous. And I think he'll do it with words, but I think he's going to try to do it with tone as well.
Mm-hmm. And, Stephen, 74 million people voted for Donald Trump. So how does Biden successfully reach out to so many people who still deny that he's the legitimate, winner of the election?
He's got a steep hill to climb in that regard. Of course, the 74 million people that voted for Donald Trump, but also millions more who didn't vote at all, but may have supported President Trump. We don't know how many of those people really believe that the election was rigged or that Joe Biden isn't going to be a legitimate president. I think it's a far smaller number than 74 million. But nonetheless, many people today are jubilant about the end of the Trump era and the beginning of a new one, and some are very upset and scared, nervous about the direction that the country will be heading because they're not confident that Joe Biden is the right choice for the United States. And so he's got to win some folks over in terms of policies, and also he's got to do what he's been doing for some time and saying that he's going to be the president for everyone.
So despite the COVID restrictions, despite the fact that there's some 25,000 National Guard troops, this is going to be a ceremony that is chock full of pomp and circumstance. As far as how we are viewed on the world stage, how important is it in your mind that this go off without a hitch, given what we saw play out on January 6th?
We're already in trouble on the world stage. I mean, having so many troops in Washington and, of course, security across the nation in state capitals isn't a good look. One of the hallmarks of American democracy is the peaceful transfer of power. And while we hope that we can get through today without any violence, having such a military presence really undermines that argument that we have peaceful transfer of power, not to mention the fact that the President of the United States, the outgoing President of the United States, is not participating for the first time in almost 150 years in the events. And so there's going to be some healing that has to happen in terms of America's image as a result of what's happened. Not only the past 4 years, but certainly the past few weeks and months.
Right. It is interesting, though, that Vice President Mike Pence will be there and that he chose not to go, we're told, he's not going to see the president off this morning as he leaves Washington. What does that say?
The vice president's office is saying that it's logistic, that it just would be difficult to be in both places, and he thought it was important to be at the inauguration. But look, it's not quite 2 weeks ago that there were people who supported the president stormed into the Capitol, many of whom were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." And the president didn't step in to help him and didn't even call him for several days afterwards to check in on him. So I would imagine that there's probably some hurt feelings as a result of that. Also, Mike Pence has to think about his own future, what his political future might be, what his public future might be. And so he's going to participate in the inauguration and the transfer of power rather than see his boss off for the ceremony that will take place down the road.
We're almost out of time, but, we're so deeply divided and there's so much animus out there. And yet I would argue that Americans often turn to the simplest gestures and that Joe Biden could play the role of grandpa and give us all a hug. Do you expect that he'll do that today?
I do. That's one of the things about Joe Biden. We've seen his edgy side. We've seen him say things that he's had to walk back. We've seen him fly off the handle and call the president of the United States a clown in a presidential debate. But we've also seen a tender side, a softer side, probably related to the deep loss and sorrow that he's faced in his life. And so he's able to sort of meet the moment with different range of emotions than the outgoing president has been able to do. And so I do expect we'll see some of that in the next few days.
All right. Well, Steve Caliendo, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your perspective.
Have a great day.
You too.